The biggest news this week is not only about the Philippines, but is about a neighboring country, Japan. Now, the newspapers and the broadcast media throughout most of the week had a lot of stories about the nuclear meltdown of a power plant in Japan. And because of that, there were fears that the after effects would reach all the way to the Philippines. There was even one school, the PUP, which had to suspend classes because there were fears, which were misplaced, that the nuclear fallout would be reaching the Philippines. Now, that is a panic reaction, of course, but there is reason to worry about what is happening in Japan, especially because there are about 300,000 Filipinos working there. Now, as we all know, there was a great big tsunami that followed an 8.9 earthquake just about a little more than a week ago. The after effect of that was that 6 of the nuclear plants in Japan were somehow affected, with one in Fukushima being the worst hit. As of the latest word, there were fires which were uncontrolled coming out of the Fukushima plant, and foreigners, Americans and Filipinos, for example, have been asked to leave the immediate area. Because of that, there has been an exodus of Americans, Filipinos, and all other foreigners living in Japan, and because of that, the cost of a flight out has gone up. So here in the Philippines, because of those 300,000 Filipinos working in Japan, their families, of course, were worried, and we were also warned that the crisis could worsen. The closure of Banco Filipino was very sudden. There are 62 branches, and the bank all of a sudden suspended operations. They did not call it a closure, they did not call it a bank holiday, but what they did do was simply close all of their branches. Now, BF says that they were forced to do so because of panic withdrawals. They were unable to meet the withdrawals because the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has not given them the emergency cash advances that they have been asking for. The BSP, on the other hand, has already raised doubts about Banco Filipino. They feel that the bank is not operating quite properly, and because of that, they have suspended any support. Because of what happened, the bank has been taken over by the Philippine Deposit Insurance Corporation, which guarantees depositors. So all of the depositors will be receiving whatever monies they have in the bank up to the maximum limit of 500,000. Banco Filipino has not been the same since it was closed in the mid-80s. It used to be one of the top savings banks in the Philippines, and then it was suddenly closed around 1985 on orders of the old central bank. The family of Tomas Aguirre, the founder of Banco Filipino, went to court, all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court took their side. They said that the closure of Banco Filipino was incorrect, it was not done properly, so the bank was able to reopen. But by then, it had lost much of its clout in the market. It reopened in the 90s, but as we can see, that having only 62 branches here in 2011, it has not been the same since. It remains open because they are actually the sister company of one of the biggest and most successful real estate developments in Metro Manila. This is BF Homes in Parañaque. Banco Filipino officials claim that they do have enough funds, they're just not liquid enough, meaning they don't have enough cash. But because of their huge properties in the various phases of BF Homes, they say that they should not have closed, that the BSP should simply have given them the cash advances, because they were blaming the old, not BSP but CD, for their current troubles. What happens now? Well, the depositors only want their money back. The BF officials want to reopen their bank, but the BSP seems to be adamant against it. The Libya crisis has gone from bad to worse, at least from the point of view of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, the ruler of Libya. There are still thousands of Filipinos who opted to stay behind in Libya, and they are probably regretting that decision because as of this week, some Western countries, notably the US, UK, and France, have been bombarding the forces of Colonel Gaddafi because Gaddafi's forces had turned the tide against the rebels who nearly came to power. They were asking him to leave after 41 years in power. He refused, of course, expected. And what happened was there was an ongoing, it was almost a civil war actually. That is an internal problem of the Libyans. However, our problem is, of the 25,000 Filipinos who were working there, more or less, a little more than 10,000 went home, which means that there are still about 15,000 who are still there, and as the situation worsens, so does their situation. It'll be very hard for them to come home now at this time. They will just have to wait it out and see what happens to Colonel Gaddafi and his and how he solves the budding civil war in his country. The case of Jonas Burgos, a young activist who was picked up and he has not been seen since that unfortunate event a little more than 2 years ago. Now, who is Jonas Burgos? He happens to be the son of the late Joe Burgos. And for newspaper people like myself, journalists, that means something. We consider Joe Burgos a hero in the fight against the Marcos dictatorship. He is the founder of the newspaper Malaya, which he has since sold to Mr. Makasait, Jake Makasait. But Joe Burgos will best be remembered for having been a true fighter against martial law and the Marcos dictatorship. I suppose being a father who was an activist, it would not surprise anyone that he would have a son who would follow in his footsteps. And that's exactly what happened to Jonas Burgos, not yet 30. He was active in helping poor farmers. The Commission on Human Rights said that it was an officer of the Philippine Army who abducted Jonas Burgos. He has not been seen since. We can only admire his mom, who never stopped demanding of the government to produce her son. We feel that the case of Mr. Burgos, young Jonas Burgos, may not end happily. Having been missing for so long, the only thing that the mother wants is for him to be produced dead or alive. At least show the body if in fact he has passed away. There's still a faint hope that maybe somehow, somewhere, young Jonas Burgos is still alive. And if he is, it's about time that the Philippine Army produce him.